Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hey there, welcome to 5 Yard Rush. I haven't introed a show with a guest for quite a while, as you can probably tell. That was a bit rusty. Stocks has not had a makeover. Stocks is on his way. He will be here shortly. It was his lad's first day of school, so he's dealing with the bedtime and everything that goes along with that. So it might be slightly delayed from Stocks, but I'm told he will be here at some point. But that's okay. You don't have to worry about me waffling on my own for the next hour. There is a brilliant guest, as you can see on the screen, if you're watching on the YouTube. And if you're not, why aren't you? Why aren't you joining in live, where you can get real-time access to myself, to our wonderful guest who I'll introduce in a moment, and to Stocks, and ask us fantasy questions, especially as we're in the season. It is Thursday. It is the Flagship show. Just before I introduce our guest, just do some housekeeping. First of all, this podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. If you are watching the live stream, you'll notice that my beard is a little bit less fluffy this week. That is because I have used the beard hedger, and it is elite. Let me tell you, I've always been scared to cut my beard because I always cut it too short, and therefore I have to shave the whole thing off. So I've always, probably that last 4 years, other than lockdowns, got it to cut the barbers, but not with the beard hedger, because it literally lets you set it to the right setting. I have mine on 10 all the way to the max, so that I don't cut it too short. It's perfect. Really easy to use. I don't get it cut too short. So you can check it out and buy yourself your own beard hedger or any of the other things on Manscaped. Going to manscaped.com and then use the code 5Yard for 20% off free shipping. But it is an elite tool. I'm not just saying that because they're sponsoring the podcast. Genuinely love the product. So glad I bought it. Recommend it higher than anything else I've ever bought. Also, last bit of housekeeping, you'll notice I dropped a free podcast today. The first 20 minutes of the Patreon cast I drop every week. Something I've been doing for the last few seasons. You can subscribe to the Patreon, 5yardrush.com or patreon.com/5yardrush. You can get involved in the Patreon form as little as £1 a month. You get access to that great podcast I do every week. I'm tooting my own horn here, but it will give you a lot of player insights, utilization trends, etc., so that you can stay on top of who is doing what, when to panic, when not to panic, and when to make changes to your roster. So I do thoroughly suggest you subscribe and get access to our great Patreon channel as well, where you can join all the great patrons and get involved in the debate there. But without further ado, let me introduce my good friend and phenomenal guest. He is a long-time commissioner of a home league, which he very kindly invited me into a few years ago. Stacey saying hello. Hi, Stacey. Hope you're well, my friend. His name is Joel Hewitt, for those of you that might not be familiar with Joel, which, you know, Joel is a phenomenal bloke. He is a Saints fan, and I'm still friends with him. That tells you how phenomenal he is, because there aren't many Saints fans to be friends with. But Joel, welcome. We've been talking about doing this for a few years, and you finally plucked up the courage to do it. Welcome to 5 Yard Rush. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, like every draft day that we have, that we live stream, I always threaten that you should get me on here, because after that time, I've usually had a couple of frothy coffees, and by that point, I'm like, Murf, get me on your show. I'm just,
and
a
then
guy.
I always reply, absolutely. You let me know when, pal. And then it goes radio silent for a few weeks, and then this year he's like, no, let's do it. I was like, finally, third year of threatening to come on. He's finally here, and reason we're doing this, I just find that home leagues are the most fun leagues, alongside with some of the great charity leagues like the Scottish Fish Bowl, etc., out there. And I think everybody can learn a few things today just about how to make home leagues fun. You know, I was gracious enough to be invited into Joel's league 3 years ago. League's 13 years old. I'm right in thinking that, right?
We're into year 13 now. Yeah, I was counting it.
13 years.
2011.
I was kind enough to be invited in 3 years ago, and it is by far one of the most entertaining leagues I'm in. Joel goes above and beyond any fantasy commissioner I know in terms of making it fun. In a lot of the little weird and quirky things he does, and I'm going to let him talk about them in a bit. But I thought it'd be really good, especially as now the season's kicked off. Now's a good time to sort of up the ante a little bit and keep things flowing, keep things entertaining in leagues. So getting into it, Joel, let's talk about the league. Let's talk about the history of it. Sort of talked about it 13 years ago. How did it all come about? Why did you form a fantasy league? Give me the history.
So yeah, it all kind of started. There was me and two other guys. So there was only three of us. And we were watching the games. Red Zone was still quite a new concept. And the NFL Network, do you remember the old Pick Me adverts where they would like fire a ball through a wall and somebody would like one hand catch it and be like, pick me? We're like, what the hell is all this about? So we had a look and we're like, let's just start something up and let's just see. We all auto drafted. We had a spare fourth team that nobody would manage, but we would kind of always make sure it had the optimal lineup. It did terrible on the waivers because we would like take the cream of the crop. But essentially a 4-man league, which is really a 3-man league. You can imagine the kind of points we were racking up. It was one of them where you just kind of jumped in and were like, let's just see how it goes. And from there, it just kind of escalated. Out of the three of us that were there, I'm still the only one that's been in every season throughout. And then we just kind of started adding friends and friends of friends, and we would start to talk about it when we went out for a couple of beers, and then somebody would overhear and say, I don't even watch the sport, but this sounds like fun. So obviously, like mutual friends, I'm just going to like name drop weird people that nobody else will know about, but like Tom and Pete, who you're friendly with, they never watched it. And they just knew that I was managing a league, and I fired up the bat signal because I wanted to get it up to, I think 8 teams was what I was trying to get to at the time. So Pete and Tom got involved. Pete's a researcher, so the man just like went on every forum, listened to every podcast, read everything he could. And Tom is, we always used to refer to him as the beautiful mind because you can almost see him like writing on a window in white pen. Because he would look at all the stats, facts, and figures. He's a maths teacher, head of maths, or at least was head of the maths at the south of England. So they started to get on board. I dragged in, I always refer to him as my little cousin, Chris, who is part of the league. He's like 18 months younger than me. He's like 36 years old, but still my little cousin. And then slowly but surely we started to like get a bit of swell. At one point, I think we got up to, I think it was about 16, and we split it into 2 divisions at that point. And then people like have come in and gone out over the time. And now we have two famous Adams that both have podcasts. We've got yourself, obviously, which it was absolute pleasure bringing you on board. It was through Pete, mutual friend. He like read your book and followed you on Twitter and listened to the podcast and said, I think I know a guy because we needed a spot. And by that point, I think after 10 years of trying to get friends of friends, you were starting to not know people. So then we got you. And then I suppose I'll drop the nugget slightly there is a few years prior, we ended up with NFL fantasy analyst Adam Rank. And he's been on the league now for about, I think maybe 5 years, could possibly be a little bit more. He's like participated in the draft every year. He auto drafted once and we just gave him hell. But yeah, like he's dropped in on like video calls and things, and it's been a bit of a mission, but it's good fun. And that's it. People come in, even when they drop out, it's not because they're not having a good time. It's, they've got other responsibilities or something. They haven't got the time to put it in because it's fantasy football, but we take it seriously just as much as the next guy. Like we will absolutely, like there have been arguments, there have been fallings out. People have left in a blaze of glory that I've never spoke to again. Marty, if you can hear me, man, you're very welcome if ever a spot comes back.
Oh, I love that. You got to send me his Twitter handle after this, or X handle, whatever it is. I will tag him, and I'll make sure he listens to this and be like, "Hey, Marty, hi."
Yeah, exactly. And here we are. So yeah, it's just been a pleasure to do for the past 13 years. And I think, as you said, it's about making it fun, making it engaging. I mean, to go back a little bit, the reason that we ended up with Rank on the show was on the league was a few of us ended up on. They were trying a different format a little while ago called Fantasy and Friends, where they brought in just community members or leagues and things, and they had them throughout their like 30-minute show on the NFL Network. And like Tom, Pete, the other beat in the league, myself and Gordy Eloisa, we were all on that show for the 30 minutes. They were doing like a UK special. So then we got chatting. Like Maurice Jones-Drew was one of the other hosts. He's all-time favorite running back of mine. So that was cool to just like have a chat with him. And then at the end of it, we everyone sent messages and friend requests and things on Twitter and Facebook. And that year, a spot came up, and I just on a whim, I was like, "Hey, Rank, we've got a spot free in the league. Do you want to jump on? You feel free to like use it for podcasts or tweet about it, or as a good excuse to try and get over to a London game, which we keep trying to drag him over for one so that we can have a league together for that."
He's not made it over yet, but we need to make it happen, because I've told him if he does make it over, I'll squeeze in a trip to the Arsenal as well, because he's a big gooner, which I know will massively disappoint.
He is, yeah. There are too many Arsenal fans in our league. There's you, there's Chris, there's Rank. I'm sure there's another one lurking somewhere.
Yeah, there always is.
Because I'm also a Spurs fan, which I mean, like
double trouble. You're a Spurs and a Saints fan. That is how good you are. That I'm willing to oversee that. I'm willing to overlook it. Like it's just like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, listen. I also think that you fill a good quota for me, because I don't know any other Saints and Tottenham fans. So
there you go. It's good to have balance in your life, Murf. That's what.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. So you went on fantasy. You went on a fantasy show on the NFL Network, and you just randomly rocked up. Was that live on there? You asked Rank. You just said, "Hey, by the way, we got a spot. Join," and therefore he was kind of pressured into doing it. Or
no, I gave him a shout afterwards. Like on the show was like going out live. We were live on NFL Network on our best British behaviour, and it was all tea and biscuits. One of the chaps was sat in front of a fireplace in a wingback chair with a picture of the Queen on his mantle, and we were just having an absolute ball. I was at work that night. I used to work nights for a place that I'll not get in trouble, and I ducked out for like an hour to like sit and like live stream across to the US. It must have been like midnight, 1 a.m. or something our time, but yeah. So then we just ended up chatting, and it just led on to this, and now. Here we are a few years later.
That's amazing. I love that. I love the fact that he's just random, and then it's just and then you say, you sort of have lowered the bar. You went from Adam Rank to me, so I mean, but look, like I said, it's an absolute pleasure to join, because we'll talk about what you do while you make it fun. But I think the first thing I noticed I think sometimes it can be a bit hard being an outsider. Joining a home league, because a lot of you are very, very close. Like you visit each other all the time. You're in different parts of the country. You all make a supreme effort. It's not once or twice a year. It's quite a significant amount of times. You all really get together and meet up. And you've all got children, and you make it all work. It's phenomenal. And I think sometimes people perhaps could be a bit hesitant, because like, well, everyone knows everyone. I'm a bit the outsider, but the one thing I'll say from day dot is everyone was so welcoming. You feel like you're just part of the group from day one. Like you don't feel like I don't feel like an outsider, even though I've only been in the league 3 years. I feel like I'm part of the furniture. I feel like I've been there all 13 years. And I think
when you said 3 years, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was longer. You just slipped straight in, and that was great. And like, who doesn't want to try and beat a fantasy guru in a fantasy league?
Well, I'm not really a guru.
That's why they're nice to you.
I just fake it till I make it, mate. That's how I do it. But Rank, I mean, I'm no Rank, but well, he's a Bears fan, so we're frenemies this week. So looking forward to them going 0-2. That's one thing I can tell you for free. But yeah, no, and I think that's what makes it special, because it's not just all the things you do; it's the people you've got in it, and everyone buys into it and does it, and just gets, everyone loves it. It's great crack. Let's give some tips to the listeners about how you make the league so engaging. So what are some of the things that you've done over the years, and some of the things you do now that makes it fun, makes it better than your average league?
It all really starts from the top, and I don't mean that like I'm the best person in the world, therefore it's the best league. What I mean is, if I'm engaging as the commissioner, like I post everything on Facebook, I set all the rules, the draft orders, and all this kind of stuff. And the more I put into it, the more people get out of it. It's such low effort for anybody else, apart from, draft your players, start your lineup. If you've got the time, really get into the minutiae and get in on the chat and stuff, you can do. But really, it's I'm just a bit of a sideshow. So the things that we do is, we try and stay active where we can on the Facebook throughout the season. I used to do a weekly breakdown of every matchup, who's doing what against who, and so on and so forth. I used to write it in long form before you could film a video and stick it on there, and I would send that out to everybody. And it was from the desk of the commissioner, dictated but not read. And I would send that out. People would enjoy seeing things and being able to look, because I think the common thing is nobody cares about your fantasy team, isn't it? Like you like it, but nobody else does. But by doing this, it opened it up, and people would just read little snippets. I'm up against Gordy. What's he done last week? What's he doing this week? So even before that starts, we have a draft council. So there's me, there's Tom, there's Chris, my little cousin, and we get together each year to try and have a fun, different way of having a draft order. We've had the very first one. Chris and a friend of ours, Mick, former league member, they did a duck race down the river in York. They just grabbed loads of rubber ducks, wrote a bunch of people's names on them, threw them over the edge, filmed the whole thing, took it back, edited it together, commentated over it like it was a big deal. They had interviews with weird characters they'd kind of put on. So they've done that. They did a penalty shootout with someone's workmates. They didn't know what they were doing. They just rocked up and they're like, we need to film you all. We're going to assign people to you and whatnot. We've done Street Fighter tournaments. We've live streamed. Once I created everybody in one of the wrestling games, like took pictures and likenesses and created entrances and an arena, and then streamed it on Twitch and had I think at that point, I think it was 16 of us, like a 16-man Royal Rumble to see who was going to get what pick. And then Chris and I would commentate over the whole thing. And just doing all these sorts of things. I think we had the digital football players running across the pitch. This year we it was a bit late notice because I switched jobs and everything. Life gets in the way sometimes. But Chris and I did a full simulated season on Madden, but we replaced each team. We created a whole fantasy draft at random, so we didn't know who was playing for whose team. Everybody were represented by their own. And I think obviously you had Tampa, but you were pleased with your upgrade at QB, weren't you? Because it weren't Baker.
Yeah, it wasn't Baker. I'm trying to think who it was now. I remember someone got Matt Ryan.
yeah. Matt Ryan
someone got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was a starting QB. I can't remember who I had. Someone quite middle of the road, but it was fine. I was quite happy they made the playoffs.
Yeah. So then, we live streamed that over the Facebook, and we have a chat and everything. And then, Christ, come draft day, once all the orders set, we live streamed the whole draft for 3 to 4 hours sometimes.
Yeah,
and it's usually myself, Chris, and May, and we just drink too much, commentate on the whole thing. We've had boards up, we've had call-ins. Tom often calls in for his pick, and we like to break down. We have it 5-minute picks, so anybody that clutches the pearls at a 30-second round per pick draft would hate ours, because you can be, gosh, if everyone took the 5 minutes, by the time you get to the 12th pick, you're looking at half an hour.
So, you go on to about 4 in the morning.
Yeah. We've had some late ones. And we always, by the end of it, the three of us, we always drink throughout anyway, and we encourage friends let friends drink and draft, and that's the only time that you can get away with a phrase such as this. And so far between us, we've got 4 championships, so we're we must be doing something right. We're doing okay. Out of the 13, a third of the winnings have gone to 3 of us, and it's stuff like that. We've got a trophy. Somebody said that it should be called the Kong because we're climbing like King Kong, so the trophy became the Kong, and we've got a Amiibo Donkey Kong glued into a cheap trophy that it's got a big thing on it that just says Kong in capital letters, and then people love it because it's something stupid, and then it sits in somebody's lounge. I try and meet people in person, hand it over, do the handshake like I'm Triple H in NXT, and just do the point at the next champion and stuff. So I can't wait for you to maybe one day do it, and I can come down and get that photo with you. But that's
going to be the season, mate. Stuff. That's what it is.
Could be. And even once the season's finished, after the playoffs, we do the playoff challenge. So when the actual NFL playoffs are going on, you've been part of it every year. The winner who can make it all the way and have the most points by the end of the Super Bowl on the official NFL challenge thing, they get to keep one of the guys from their team last year in replace of their first round pick. Tom was picking 11th this year, and he got CMC in the first round.
I know.
So he just stole that. And I was picking second. I thought it was going to be Justin Jefferson. I was going to get second pick. I was going to get CMC. Tom, he had CMC last year, won the playoff challenge, took him this year. And that keeps the engagement going and stuff. And even the people that are in the bottom half of our playoffs, the winner of that, so 7th place gets the 2nd pick.
Yeah.
And, you just got to always stay on it. It splits 50-50, so the top 6 can go for the top prize, the bottom 6 can go for the number 2 pick. And you just always engage with people.
And what I love is when you do the draft order video, because actually 4 of the draft slots, because 1, 2, 11 and 12, right, are already selected based on weight. So if you're the champion, you pick 12. You finished last, you pick first, and then it's the winner of the the winner of the losers playoff gets the second.
We call
pick.
that the consolation championship.
Yeah, the consolation champion. You get the second pick. I don't know how is the 11th the runner up gets
11th the runner up. Yeah, you almost made it, but then you.
So you get 11.
That's the price you pay by being in the big dance.
By being almost good.
By being almost good.
By being the first loser, you get the 2nd worst draft spot. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then but you include them even though they're drafted in the draft order. So even like whatever the theme is of this year, it was the man. They still all had teams. They were still part of it. And just obviously where they finished didn't matter because they already had the draft slot. So all they were doing really with their participation was ruining the chances.
Ruining it for someone else.
Yeah, which is what I love. And that's what I always say every year about fantasy teams. If you miss the playoffs, just ruin it for someone else. Go after the team. That's why I can't understand people. Like, maybe if it's in a league you don't care in, but in a home league, if you're out of the playoffs, just put in all the waiver claims. Just really dilute. Like, I don't understand this line of thinking of, oh, well, if you're eliminated, you shouldn't be allowed to make waiver claims. I disagree. I think you should make more waiver claims. I think you should really ruin it for everyone. Yeah.
As soon as I ain't winning, I am going to be the best, worst team possible. Like, I'm still in there. I want to win each and every week because if I could, everyone else would lose. That would be the ideal situation. Draws all around. Well done, everybody. You're as bad as each other.
And that's what's great. And I remember, was it last year you bought a cameo?
Last year, yeah, it was. Yeah. That was. We were really struggling to try and think of something, and the clock was ticking. I was like, I'm just going to pull names out of the hat, and then one of the draft council was like, or we could still have names pulled out of the hat, and we could like get somebody to do it. Anyway, he jumps on Cameo and finds Jonathan Coachman, and obviously he's ESPN now, but we're all kind of like 90s wrestling fans, so we just allocated wrestling team name or wrestling names to each person who they may be like and whatnot. And then, so we had Coach like pulling out the draft order, and he literally just pulled names out of the hat for 10 minutes and just like riffed on each one and little stories and things.
Which is phenomenal because most people on Cameo do a short little bit and it's like 30 seconds, 40 seconds. You might get a minute if you're really lucky. He did go all in. He was giving like analysis.
He had music.
It was phenomenal. I was like, he went above and beyond. I was like, this guy's awesome. He was just
Coach really won some people over that day.
Yo, I'm telling you now, if you're wrestling fans and you need someone to do your draft order, Coach is the guy.
Yeah, worth it. Absolutely worth every penny.
It really was worth. He really went above and beyond. It was. I wasn't a big wrestling guy like from the coverage, so I didn't really know who he was, but he was legendary. Really, really cool. Let's talk about now. There are a lot of people listening who play in our leagues, and our leagues as good as they are, they're not home leagues. Although it does feel like that.
I got my W in the FFCC this week. I'm ready. I'm taking it.
Well, it's a 2-week leg, so you got to see. You might lose this week and be out.
Don't matter. I've got it in the bag already.
So, what advice did you give to people who are starting up, who are thinking, right, next year I'm going to form a home league, whether that's people that they know in person, because more and more people are into the sport, whereas that wasn't the case 5-6 years ago or 10 years ago, or people that they know online to create that home league? What kind of suggestions would you make for people kicking up now and getting it started?
The easiest suggestion is to start you off, don't take it too seriously. Just want to get a bunch of people together, show them that it's not just rugby and pads if they don't watch the sport. if they do, it's an easy win. You go, oh, who'd you like? Great. Well, they suck, but they have one good player, so you might be able to draft him. It's difficult because obviously I've not started a league in a while, but it is really a case of just get people that you know are going to at least show up week in, week out, setting a lineup. That's really important because you can ruin it for everybody if somebody all of a sudden, starts to drop the odd week and then picks it up the next week. Like there's a joke in the old, you remember The League, the TV show, where like Taco all of a sudden starts putting effort in and somebody's complaining like, no, I want my Taco bye week. Well, don't be Taco. Don't be the guy that drops in and out, either show or don't show. I think the main things is if it's just people that you don't have physical contact with, just get them online. I think people at this point would say, if you make it a paid league, people are more likely to stick around and put some money in. Steer clear of that. Just get people that you're gonna have a good time with, that maybe you can like rub elbows with, and if you're in a reasonable vicinity of the country, get together every other Sunday or once a year and just make a thing out of it. Go to a game in London and just meet up and just
absolutely
have a good time and just it's all about the people at the end of the day. Nobody ever like put one fantasy championship on a CV, but they'll mention it maybe in a job interview. It came up in mine. They say.
I was going to say, you say that. I've not only seen it in a CV, I love the people who are on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it, Elon Musk's playground, and put 13-time fantasy champion. I swear, I see it. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's common, but there's more than a few people that do it. And I'm like, really? Like 30? Like one person got 4-time fantasy champion. I was like 7-time. Which, if it was an account based to the league, like you created a team account and you did that, like there's a league in here called the British Fantasy Football League, right? And this guy called Simo, it's got like 96 teams, all sorts of divisions,
I'm in it.
all sorts, right? Oh, you are, yeah. So there you go.
Yeah,
so like
the Scunthorpe fighting unicorns, my friend.
Scunthorpe fighting. See, that's the thing. Everyone's in it now. I didn't think you played IDP. There we go. So there we go. So
the only time
that's different because people do create Twitter accounts for that. That's very different. Like if it's in that context, I have no problem because it's basically like making like a parody of being a real team, and people do that all the time. So no problem. It's when like people with their actual personal accounts list that they've won X amount of fantasy titles. You're like, okay, dog, listen, chill your boots. I think I don't know many people that have never won a fantasy league, and if you haven't, then reach out to me. I will personally make sure that we win a fantasy league together at some point. I can't guarantee this year, but at some point, I will guarantee we will win one. Even if it takes 20 years, I will stick around that long to ensure that you'll win a fantasy league. So
I've got like Rocky montage kind of vibes in the back of my head now. You feeding someone raw eggs.
Listen, you got to be battle hardened. You got to go through it. Listen, there's none of this whole winning it like 16-0, 17-0. No. My favorite fantasy wins, by the way, are the ones where I go into the playoffs with a losing record and win it because that just annoys the I love it because that really annoys. That really annoys everybody from doing it. Like it just annoys the whole league when you win it with a losing record.
My favorite part of fantasy season is the win-loss gymnastics that happens in like the final 3 or 4 weeks where you've got your people that are on the cusp of being in or out of the playoffs, and they're like, right, if Murf can beat Chris and Tom loses by this amount of points and I go on a streak of 4 more victories, I'm making the playoffs, baby, and then I'm going to win it all. That I absolutely love it. You just got people like going crazy trying to work out. And all you can do is try and win your game.
Exactly that. I don't know. Look, I've gone undefeated in fantasy seasons, and it feels really hollow when you do it. Like the pressure of winning those games that are completely meaningless kind of just annoy me. Like week 13, you've locked the 1 seed, you're 12-0, and the pressure of having to win that game, which is completely meaningless, it's just too much. It's like it's worse than playing the final. But it's worse than playing the final because you're just sitting there like, well, if you lose, it doesn't matter, but it does. It matters more because you're and I just think I don't know. I kind of feel the undefeated seasons they're great and it's a phenomenal thing to do and you look back on, but actually I don't think I enjoy them half as much as the ones where I sneak in and win it. I've actually won a fantasy league, won the whole thing, and still at the end of the season had a losing record.
Amazing. That's incredible.
And that is my absolute favorite. So I am the champion. I was the champion of a league where I went, where'd I go? I went 7 and it was the week 15 finish for some reason. This was when like 16 was the normal finish, but it was a week 15. Yeah. So I finished the season 7 and 8. And I won the 2 weeks in the playoffs. I went in at 5 and 8 because there were 3 teams that were undefeated. No, sorry, 2 teams undefeated because they somehow didn't play each other. I don't know how the schedule worked, but they didn't play each other. And 1 team had a losing record.
Wow.
And I got in on points. So I snuck in on points and then won the whole thing. I was like, thanks very much. 7 and 8. Stick your undefeated.
The crazy thing about our home league is, I mean, I didn't win it for 6 or 7 years or something like that. And the one time I did was because I was off with a broken hip. So I had all summer to research every player known to man. But I didn't like winning it. It was a strange kind of concept. I liked watching people win and enjoy it. It feels like as the person creating it to then be sat up on high, you kind of lose people a little bit. I have won it since, but it was more of a challenge. But that's a strange kind of concept. Especially, I'll tell you what, anybody that's creating a league, purposefully don't win year 1 because you'll lose people. They're like, oh, you created this just to smash us. Nah, middling team. Win it in years 2 or 3 or stuff. Start to build that little trust with some people, and then you'll get that.
Yeah.
And reach out to celebrities. Just absolutely, just get one of them. Maurice Jones-Drew follows me on Twitter. It was between him and you to make the league, Murf, and he didn't reply. So you're in.
That's weird. We were talking about our favorite NFL analysts, and I like Drew, but I said I don't love him. And now knowing I've got one over him. Well, yeah, great player. But now I got one over him. I'm happy with that. Like that makes me feel good. So I'm pleased. Yeah. So last question out of the league. What other than the people, because obviously I know that's exactly what you say. So I'm gonna take the easy answer out of the way. Sure. What is the best thing about the league? What is the best thing about your home league? And it's the one thing that someone can take away and put into their league if they're listening.
It's the same thing. The best thing about fantasy football is draft season, baby. Like honestly, we start in like June, coming up with concepts and try and decide on what daft thing that we can do. Is it going to be a Hot Wheels race? Is it going to be like one of those marble things in the sand? Like all the sorts of things. What can we film with a simple camera phone that I will then spend 16 hours editing with dramatic music behind? And then throughout there, that gets everybody kind of like hyped up. Because I do a video to announce what the draft video is going to be. Then we do the draft video, and then we live stream the draft. So that whole thing really sets up the season for us. And then, week 1 happens, everyone gets injured, and then everyone has a miserable time.
Absolutely. And that brings a good segue into a bit of a recap on week 1. And there was a lot of injuries this week. We lost J.K. Dobbins and Aaron Rodgers to the season. So RIP. We also lost Deontay Johnson, Greg Dulcich, Aaron Jones, Anthony Richardson, Jacoby Myers, and Tyler Lockett. Not all of them are out for this week, but some of them could be. I think Richardson's definitely going to be back. Dulcich looks doubtful. Jones, Myers, and Lockett are questionable. How's it impacted your teams? Have you survived? Have you got through week 1 with not too many injuries so far?
I don't want to say it out loud, Murph, but like I've come out unscathed, and the closest is the worry that Austin Eckler might drop some carries this week, and that's quite literally it. But my opponent is also in the same boat. He's also got pretty much his entire starting lineup, apart from Jones at Green Bay. So yeah, that's annoying because in a week full of injuries and that, I've ended up going against the one team that doesn't have any.
Good. Serves you right. It absolutely serves you right. To survive unscathed and to get through it, it absolutely serves you right. So I'm not unhappy that's happened to you.
I see you've got an empty RB slot. Who did you lose?
I think I lost Dobbins. I have so many teams, but I think I
I
need to
bet
go
you do,
back
yeah.
and check. Let me check the feed. I think I lost Dobbins. I think that is who I'll tell you now. I'm pretty sure that's who I lost. Yeah, I lost Dobbins.
I've done all right we're in a dynasty league as well together, aren't we, Murph? And
Yeah, that's fine.
where the winner gets taken out for dinner by everybody else who loses, or they like pay a fee to it. But
Yeah.
I've gone unscathed there as well. Like, I've not taken any hits. So anybody who's got Trevor Lawrence, who is my starting QB in both those leagues, I've jinxed the hell out of him. I'm very, very sorry.
He's going to go down this week, and it's all going to be
He's
your
absolutely
fault.
going down.
Is there anything in week one from a player of Trent's perspective that you want to highlight or mention in terms of players you noticed or stood out for you in week one?
I mean, it's got to be the receivers at the Rams, hasn't it? I picked up Tutu Atwell because I'm so way down on the waiver list. I didn't have a chance with Puka, but Puka looked good, didn't he? And I also have Keenan Allen in the odd league. And sorry, not Keenan Allen, but he gone from me.
Give me a team. I'll help you.
Yeah, Rams receiver, not playing at the moment.
Oh, Cooper
Cup. Yeah, so I've got Cooper Cup in a few teams, and now I'm worried that if and when he comes back in 4, 5, 6 weeks, he's just gonna lose a lot to Puka and Tutu, which, by the way, fantastic names. They're going in my all-star team names this year.
Which order would you have? Would you have Puka and Tutu or Tutu and Puka?
I think
there's got to be a Lion King. There's got to be a Lion King clever name in there somewhere.
I can already hear the Fox Sports people in the background squirreling away to create this in bad CG. I think Puka and Tutu. We'll find some kind of mashup. It's got a bit of a Timon and Pumbaa vibe, hasn't it? Like,
that's what I mean.
Where we're
100%. I would say for me.
What about you? Who kind of broke out? I mean, Baker looked good.
No, that's not good. He looked all right. I put that down to great play calling over great quarterback play. For the OC had a phenomenal game. I think for me, I looked at a lot of the trends. I did all this on the Patreon cast. For me, what really stuck out, I thought Nuke Hopkins. I know that on tape doesn't look quite as good, but his usage was phenomenal. Like, it could be Nuke Hopkins to the moon. Like, really that good. I talked about
sold him everywhere before the season.
Yeah. It's wild, isn't it? His usage was crazy, crazy good. Say Flowers is one, although I wrote about him today in my Fantasy Pros column for wide receiver cornerback matchups. It's not a good matchup. Spoiler alert. Read the column to read why it's not a good matchup for him this week. But Zay Flowers, it's interesting that he's come out of the pack as the heavy leader of that. But it'd be interesting to see if that maintains. And then I talked about the some ambiguous situations. So like the Chiefs, even though they weren't on the field as much as they should have been, really it's Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice's fit. I know Kadarius Toney's a bit of a meme after all the drops and the whole Chubbs Peterson memes came out this week. But if you look at their usage and utilization, even though they weren't on the field loads, they were the ones that were getting the targets per route run. So they were getting looked at almost one in every two routes that they ran. They were getting targeted, which tells you that there is a plan there that they're going to get significant volume, which I think Sky Moore, it was down like below 10%, which is just really bad. So it shows to me that those two are. It'd be interesting if Kadarius Toney keeps that trend with all those drops. Other things
had nice things to say about him as well, didn't he? He said that it's not going to affect the way that he looks at him. It may just be quarterback speak, but he was stood there saying, I don't hold any grudges with Toney. He's still the guy. Right?
I mean, and the way that it was used was it shows you that the only thing that was the concern was just how little he was on the field. But I think what we're going to see here is we're going to see sort of specialists. You're not going to see a wide receiver completely dominate. Like I think people were hoping. They were buying a lottery ticket on Moore or Rice or Tony and hoping that they would pick the winning lottery ticket, but they didn't. I don't think that's going to happen. The other thing, ironically, was in that game as well is, there's a couple of running back situations. I've been saying this all season that David Montgomery has been slept on, like he slept on every single season. So if you picked him up, you've done really well because he got a lot of the carries. He's going to get a lot of the usage there. Gibbs is still going to get work, but he's going to get specialized high value target work. He's not going to be the north-south 1A. He's effectively the 1B, which with draft capital is a bit mad, but
he's going to Breece Hall it this year and just to the moon.
Nah, that's just not how the Lions run their offense. They lost Jamal Williams. They went and got someone who's very archetypal, similar to Jamal Williams in David Montgomery. So I think that's how they're going to use it. And then the other situation, everyone was really high on Antonio Gibson over Brian Robinson Jr. I never got that. The utilization it's all Brian Robinson, and that Gibson is like an afterthought in this offense. So that's the other trend I sort of picked up on. And there's plenty more. Subscribe to the Patreon, you'll hear the rest. But they were sort of the highlights for me from week one. And I'm a big Brian Robinson fan, so I'm really pleased that he scored and he did a great job.
Shout out Zay Jones, man. Didn't see that one coming.
I love Zay Jones. I'm a big fan of Zay Jones.
I like the dude now. Like I've got a soft spot for the Jags. You end up seeing him a bunch of times because they're here all the time. But yeah, Zay Jones, he did me some favors because I've got Trevor Lawrence everywhere.
Well, I've talked about him this week a few times, but if you'd watched him in the preseason, whenever they lined up in two wide receiver sets, it was always Jones and not Kirk, or majority of the time it was Jones and not Kirk. So I don't think it was a huge surprise. I guess the surprise was how little Kirk was used. That was the more big shock. But yeah, Zay Jones is awesome. Fire him up this week. He's got a phenomenal matchup. I'm all over him this week. That's one thing I can say. I'll mention that in a minute when I talk about that. So yeah, fire him up this week. That's for sure because I really like his matchup. Who in week 2 you going out on a limb and saying that you're going to jump on and play this week in terms of, obviously there's the studs, but anyone that isn't particularly a stud?
I'm just having a look at my guys. I mean, a lot of the guys that you spoke about have sat on my bench, so like Gibson is down there and stuff.
You can go.
I think the only thing that is kind of a big kind of leap on my team because I'm quite well stacked. I'm winning it all this year. Cole Kmet, tight end for the Bears. I believe in him. I mean, I picked a tight end late, if you can't tell, but I've got a sneaky feeling. All I ever want is a solid 5 points from a tight end, Murf. And I think Cole Kmet is going to be my 5-point week in, week out guy. I can just rely, set him and leave him on his way. That's definitely my pushing it out on the edge for me, really. That's in the main league anyway, and then I'm stacked elsewhere. I think that's going to be kind of the best one for me. I'm starting Mostert in the Dynasty League.
If he goes,
because
he's questionable.
I think he'll do it. I think he will. I think they need him to, so they'll trot him out there. Although that New England defense is a bit of a pain.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely think. I'm with you on the tight ends. I got my tight end very late, Evan Ingram, in that. I actually think Komet's on for a good week this week. He's playing the Buccaneers, who are notoriously crap against tight ends. TJ Hawkinson wasn't too bad last week. I mean, he wasn't phenomenal, but he wasn't too bad last week. But typically, Tampa don't have a problem with points with yards going over the middle. Where they don't want to get beat is the big play out wide. So they really sort of try and funnel. They try and fuddle the play so that they're all right giving up 8 yards over the middle to Komet. And that's about as far as Justin Fields can throw the ball. So it's a win-win scenario. Like so. So yeah,
maximum Fields. Yeah.
I think it's a good matchup for Komet this week. Honestly, he's the only Bears wide receiver I would even think about starting this week. I don't think you can start any of the others. I think Komet is the one that you can start. In fact, I'll probably go as far as say that other than him and Fields are probably the only players you can start this week because you can't.
You're making me feel real good about this choice,
man. Because you can't start the running backs against the Bucs because the Bucs will shut down the run. They kept Minnesota to 41 yards rushing last week, and that's entire team. That's not just Madison. The whole team got kept to 41 yards rushing, and they've done this for years. They don't give up many 100-yard rushing games. I think they've given up. I don't know what the exact number is. It's less than 5 in the last 3 years. It's a ridiculously low number. So they don't give up much. So and then you've got that 3-headed monster where Johnson, who I got in our league by the way. So Roschon Johnson, thanks very much everyone for letting me get him because I had not the best waiver wire priority. So the fact that people let me get him was really kind. Because he's going to be the lead Bears back in a couple of weeks. Foreman is finished. Herbert is not the guy. It's going to be like Roschon Johnson. It's after seeing it this week, Roschon Johnson to the moon, but this is not the week to play him. So you're not starting any of them. You're not starting DJ Moore. You're not starting Mooney. I'm all on Komet this week. I think Komet is going to put in low end tight end 1 performance. Yeah, I think you get more than your 5 points this week. I think he could score this week. I definitely think if I had to pick a receiver that was going to score for the Bears, it would be Cole Komet over the middle. But yeah, I think
1-yard touchdown. That's all I need, Murf. I think standard scoring as well for anybody.
I think you get a 6-yard touchdown out of him, and if that's his only reception, you're delighted with that 6.6 points. Thanks very much. You walk off through the sunset. Yeah. But I think he'll do all right. I think he'll have I don't think he's gonna have a stellar week, but I think he's gonna have a good week.
He never will, and I don't want him to. No, it's okay. I'm just here for them 5.
You should feel good starting him this week. I talk about this in the matchups and I talk about it in the Patreon cast. So I'm not going to go sort of too far into this, but I think, look at the matchups, look at who's playing and watch those injuries. There isn't really anyone by super surprise that you should be sort of starting. I'm more cautious on those that had really hype week ones. But I'm all in on Puka Nacua in a PPR league. I've got him at 30 and wide receiver 30 and half point. But if it was in PPR, I'd have him all the way in the top 24 because I just think he's going to play that Cooper Kupp role. I think you're going to see he's going to get 12 to 15 targets every game, it looks like. So I'm fully convinced he's going to get a lot of work. Everyone's sleeping on Michael Pittman Jr. I love that because he's probably the only fantasy relevant player or the only good player in that offense now. No disrespect to any of the others. So I'm all in on Michael Pittman Jr. I've got him inside my top 24 this week. Feel good about starting him. I've talked about Nuke Hopkins. I'm a bit low on him. I'm probably going to move him up. I have him at 21. Don't be surprised if you see him in the late teens in my rankings on Sunday. It looks like Brandon Cooks is probably not going to play. It's trending towards him potentially being out. I saw before we jumped on. And yeah, as for KC, don't start Sky Moore. Fade him this week. Just see if the utilization comes back. Just be a bit careful with him. And then just to round off cornerbacks and wide receiver matchups this week. I wrote about this on Fantasy Pros. It should be going live at some point if it's not already. But I'll give you the highlights. The matchups I absolutely love this week. AJ Brown, he's against Evans of Minnesota, who was pretty awful on Sunday. He can definitely torch him all day long. So I see that as a great matchup. But you'd start AJ Brown anyway, but expect him to potentially go to the moon this week. Deebo Samuel, for those of you a bit hesitant on him, he's playing Witherspoon of the Rams. Again, Witherspoon gave up the 3rd most fantasy points per route run last week. He's going to get torched again this week by Samuel in that pace. And as I said, Zay Jones. Zay Jones is playing L'Jarius Sneed this week. Love that matchup for Jones. I think he's going to teach him a thing or two and turn him in knots. So I love that. The the piece of advice I'd give you, CeeDee Lamb, he is against the other Michael Carter. Yes, the Jets have 2 Michael Carters. That's not a typo. They legitimately have 2 Michael Carters, one on offense, one on defense. The one on defense is actually really good at football. So tough matchup for CeeDee Lamb. I'd still play him, but just he's not going to put up this massive week. It's going to be tempered. So just be a little careful. If you're expecting a huge spike week from him, I don't see it happening. The 2 I'm really cautious on this week, one is George Pickens. Everyone's going to be in love with George Pickens now, with Deontay Johnson likely to be out, and sitting there thinking, okay, well, George Pickens is going to be the one. First of all, it's a Matt Canada offense. It's not pretty. They're the only team in the NFL in the last 3 years that have not had a 400-yard game on offense. Every other team's had a minimum of 3. 9 teams have had it at least 10 or more times. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking about a pretty pedestrian offense here with the Matt Canada Pittsburgh Steelers. But then George Pickens, to top all this off, has arguably the best cornerback in the game right now in Denzel Ward. So I hate that matchup. I absolutely hate that matchup. All ends up for me. I'm fading. I'm going to Allen Robinson. I still don't think that's a great matchup for Robinson. But if I had to start one of the 2 this week, I am fading George Pickens. I'd go Allen Robinson. And then Zay Flowers, as I mentioned, he's got a really tough matchup. He's got Mike Hilton of the Bengals this week. Interesting to see where they go. I think they're going to throw the ball to him less this week. I still think Zay Jones is an incredible talent. Zay Flowers is an incredible talent. I still think he's going to do really well. But I do think that this matchup will mean they won't sling it as much in their direction as you would expect. If you think the Browns last week were absolutely storming it and just decided they weren't going to throw the ball towards Mike Hilton because they were worried about that momentum shift, that change in momentum that Mike Hilton in an interception can bring you. So they deliberately didn't target him all that much. I think I've got to remember the stat. I think it's about 12% of targets per route run were thrown in his direction, which is just really low. Normally that number would be north of like 18 to 20%. So they're deliberately not targeting him all that much. Or last week they weren't. And they were winning the game comfortably because they didn't want to shift that momentum back. Because he is their best corner by a long shot. And he plays in the slot. So it can be a long slot. So yeah, just watch that matchup with Zay Jones. Just temper expectations slightly on Zay Jones this week. Sorry, I keep saying Zay Jones. Zay Flowers this week. Too many Zays. So yeah, I've got him just outside the top 24. He'll be probably round about 30, 31 by the end of the week, I reckon. So just keep an eye on that one a little bit. That's all I'm saying. Do you have any questions for me while you're here, Joel?
Oh gosh, that's a great question, actually. Right, I tell you what, let's have a look. Let's have a look at my what's going on with my team. Let's see if you can squeak me out some extra points. So, sat on my bench. Let me know if any of these really should be put in. So we've got Keenan Allen. Tutu Atwell, who he's sticking around. Tyler Boyd.
Your bench is not a play. Who are you not playing? Who is in your lineup that Keenan Allen is not getting in over?
I've got Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, and Mike Evans.
Okay, Keenan Allen's got to play over Mike Evans.
You reckon?
All day long. All day long.
All right, Keenan Allen, he's going in. I've got Gabe Davis as well. So
yeah, don't worry about him. He can go take a dirt nap somewhere until he turns up for work.
Let's switch out Mike Evans. See you later, mate.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he's got an amazing matchup, Keenan Allen this week. Keenan Allen has got he's got Elijah Molden this week, who I wouldn't say got torched last week, but it wasn't pretty in the slot. Got targeted, not overly heavily, but a fair amount. But he was giving up basically 0.25 fantasy points per route run against him, which is quite high. So, I really like that matchup. I think that Tennessee they're not a bad D, but they're pretty bad in the in the secondary, so I think they're there to be targeted. His usage last week, Keenan Allen's pretty good. He led the team in targets. He was on the field 100% of the time as well, which is awesome. That's what I want for an elite tight end or elite wide receiver to be on the field at least 90% of the time. So 100% of the time meets that criteria quite nicely.
It does.
Mike Evans, I listen, I think Mike Evans is, I've got him outside the top 24. I think I've got him at 25. Let me just double check that. I just think with Mike Evans, he's a bit boom or bust. You're going to need a touchdown from him, and that means you're relying on Baker Mayfield to get, 25, I've got him. You need Baker Mayfield to throw in the ball. Now, what I will say is, looking at the uses last week, Baker prefers Mike Evans to Chris Godwin, which surprised me. I actually thought Chris Godwin would get a lot more of the ball, especially in that sort of game where it was quite close, the low risk, medium to high reward. It didn't happen. Evans is getting targeted, but Evans is going to need to score to justify that selection. Whereas I think Keenan Allen will get there on the yards alone. And then I think if he gets the score on top, then you're going to the races. So I think
there's one thing you need to know about the way that I draft my team and start my team. It goes very, very little on like points, the stats, and facts, and figures, and it goes a lot on feels. Where I thrive is I'm looking at Mike Evans and he's going for that record-breaking, like 1,000-yard consecutive season.
Well, he's already got that, but yeah. Oh, from the start of his career, he hasn't done it from like total in a row. Yeah, so he can.
Yeah, he's trying to get the in a row, isn't he? And I want to believe him, and the best way I can support that man is by having him on my team, and then B, starting that in the lineup. But I'm gonna give him the week off. He's not gonna put up the yards.
So I've got. I mean, this is half point PPR, but if it was complete standard, I'd still have these rankings pretty close. In fact, I'll look at my standard rankings in a minute. I've got Keenan Allen at 14. I've got Mike Evans at 25. In standard, I have them as Keenan Allen at 18 and Mike Evans at 23. So closer.
So a little bit closer together, but you still reckon Keenan Allen's your man.
But I'd still go with Allen. I just think that matchup he'll win a lot in that matchup. I think he'll get even more
I don't need any other excuses to watch the Chargers. They have the most aesthetically pleasing uniforms in all of sports. So I could just watch them all day, regardless of what's going on there. But now I've got just one more reason. That's two Chargers starting there.
And with Kellen Moore there, like happy days. Like he's going to make that offense fun to watch. That's for sure. And big fan of that. This has been phenomenal. I'm so glad that you came on and did this at last. It's
been loads of fun, man.
Yeah, I loved it. We'll get you back on at some point towards the end of the season. You can give us a breakdown of how the league's getting on, and we can all celebrate rank missing the playoffs again. I
love it. I love it so much. There's nothing quite like it when he's there. He's on the waivers. He's putting in the work, and he's still getting smushed by a bunch of people from Scunthorpe and all over the UK.
I will say, did he hit the waivers this week? I don't think he did. Maybe he's quite happy with
I don't think he has taken over by this one, but he gets on there. He does the occasional trade with people. He texts me, didn't text me, sent me a message last season, and he was like, have I got late to the game, or is this trade real? Because like Tom had sent him a massively weighted trade in Rank's favor, but Tom thought he was getting a primo deal. And I was like, no, he truly believes. I can't remember what it was now, but I was like, he truly believes in this thing. He's like, cool. I just didn't want to accept it if it was a drunken fumble. So he's got a touch of honor in him, but yeah, he does have a touch of honor.
I can vouch for that for sure.
But we love watching him lose.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I do give him some shit when that happens. Especially now that I have his number and can do that.
That's it. Yeah, this game.
So it's pretty good. But yeah, tell everyone where they can find you if they wanted to interact and get any more advice about being a Commissioner Extraordinaire.
My handle on Twitter and or X would be at Born on Fire, all one word, BRNONFIRE, and that is an ages old one. I made my Twitter account in 2008 before people really jumped on board, and that was my gamer tag on my Xbox. So
it's a fire. It's definitely a great handle. Stocks, you sent a question a couple of weeks ago, and Stocks was very complimentary of your handle. He liked that.
Do you know why it came around? Igneous is the layers of rock that are created by a volcano, and igneous is Latin for born on fire. And so there you go. That's how cool and edgy I was making my Xbox 360 name.
I love it, man. It's awesome. It's a great handle. It's certainly better than say Murf_NFL, but I got to keep it so easy people can easily find.
Well, I can now have Born on Fire _NFL. You see, because now
you've been on the podcast.
I've been on the podcast. Yeah,
that's it. You got to do it. Absolutely, so that you can get in touch with Joel on Elon Musk's playground at Born on Fire. Definitely do. He's just a lot of fun, as you can tell from the last hour where he's been here. So yeah, any tips, get in touch with Joel, because he, like I said, it's a great league. I thoroughly enjoy playing in it. I look forward to it every single year. I can't say that about all the leagues. I'm in them in so many. That's probably why, but I do massively look forward to it. We had a great debate in the live draft about you really hate the idea of Superflex.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't start two quarterbacks in football, even though the Saints do, which I think is ironic in its own right. And then I decided, and then I was like, well, why are we counting points for yards? They're not real. So it's like, why are we doing a touchdown only league?
Let's get rid of tight ends. Don't need that.
No,
kickers, lose them.
Yeah, well, I'm all for kickers. Like I'm one of these. Hey, listen, the FFCC, I start two kickers.
I love the two kicker, man. I love the chaos. It's fantastic. I love good defensive kickers, and people just, for lack of a better phrase, kick off. Like, got to draft two kickers. I am 7th round kicker. I'm getting my 2 good ones early. I'm taking it all this year, baby.
Anyone that threatens me about how annoying it is to have to roster multiple kickers and start 2, 3, I will make it 3 kickers next year. That's right. I will make it so you can't even start unless if you don't pick your kickers early, you ain't starting a kicker, or you're not starting the full complement of kickers. So be careful. Don't moan about the kickers. Not around us two, anyways. Phenomenal show. Thank you so much for coming on, my man. I've loved it. Loved having you here. We will get you back. Rush Nation, don't forget, you can get 20% off all goods at manscaped.com. So do check out Manscaped for all your needs. Like I said, the beard hedger is elite. Big fan of that. So do check out manscaped.com and then use the code 5yard for 20% off all your goods and free global shipping. Join the Patreon. Like I said, minimum £1 a month, but there's tiers of £3, £5. Support the podcast. But on top of that, you get some extra special content. I've given you a little morsel today, so do check that out. It'd be really good to have you in there and joining the chat. Subscribe to the YouTube. You can watch this live and get that notification when it comes on. Also, subscribe to the pod on Spotify and all good platforms. And then lastly, my rankings, because I get so many questions about start sits and all that. I can't go through them all, especially on a Sunday. I like to spend time with my kid. So go on to 5yardrush.co.uk. My rankings are there. There's a tab. It says Murf's Rankings, and you click that, and it's weekly rankings. That will answer 90% of your start sit questions. So if you sit me, or if you sit there and you ask me a question about a lineup, it's like who to start, Cole Kmet versus Evan Ingram, I'm probably not going to reply, or I'm just going to send you the link to that because it's there. And you can change the scoring. If it's PPR, half point standard, and if it's custom scoring, I'm not going to have the time to review it anyway on Sunday. So just check that out. That would be really useful. And I answer Patreon questions as a priority because they're the ones that support the podcast and pay the money, which is only fair enough. So, but do check out the rankings, especially before you hit me up. But
especially when I'm against you in a week, I always check them out then. Know your enemy, Murf.
Yeah.
I follow Rank on Instagram whenever I'm up against him. I'm all over your stuff when I'm against you.
You wait until I put up like a fake page that only you can access, and it'll have all the fake rankings. I'm going to totally screw you. But look, it's been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed it, Rush Nation. And yeah, if there are any questions and you can't find Joel for whatever reason, send them to me. I'll forward them on to him. And then let's bombard him. Let's get him busy. Let's get him to improve as many leagues out there as possible. But Rush Nation, thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to catching up with you all on Monday when we're all celebrating our soon to be confirmed W's. And we're looking forward to the Buccaneers being 2-0, beating ranks Chicago Bears. Looking forward to the Saints losing. And looking forward to just many, many happiness that football is back in our lives. I will be back with the Waiver Wire Show. Check that out. But until then, as always, don't forget, keep rushing.